As we celebrate unity in diversity, we are honored to have with us Dr. Prateep V.Philip, a well-known personality who's undoubtedly familiar to many of you. Currently, he is the Director General of Police in charge of civil supplies. One of his professional achievements was the starting of Victim Assistance Program that led to the government setting up a fund of 2 crores for victim assistance. His most effective and original concept is probably the founding of Friends of Police, a community policing initiative to bring the police and public together. By ensuring transparency in the workings of the police, Friends of Police movement has created a major attitudinal shift among the police and the public. Another of his original concept is exonomics, an interdisciplinary discipline to promote sustainable human development. He was also the first to start social justice tea parties to remove caste discrimination. He has authored several books, articles, and presented papers in major international and national conferences. In recognition of his myriad achievements, he is a recipient of many awards. To list a few, the prestigious Queen's Award in 2002 from UK for Innovation in Public Training and Development, British Kurukul Chevening Scholarship Award for Excellence and Leadership, Rashtriya Suraksha Award from the President of India, just to name a few. Sir, we eagerly await your address.
Great morning, everybody. I said great morning, and all of you are saying either only good morning or morning. Everybody together, great morning. Respected Director of the KCG College of Technology, Dr. Annie Jacob, the Principal, Dr. G. Prabhakaran, the Dean of Student Affairs, Dr. Annie, members of the faculty of the college, other guests of honor, and above all, the large number of students who I understand belong principally to the first year of various technology courses in the college, but that you hail from different parts of the country. As we have seen a sample of that in the panel discussion, which was very insightful and perceptive, how we come from different parts of the country, but we have one common sense of identity. India before 1947 was not even conceivable as one nation because we belong to so many disparate groups. The subnational identities in India are something like 2,000 ethnic groups and 5,000 caste groups within even the majority religion. And therefore, the only modus vivendi or the way to live for such a diverse nation was the concept that was honored by the founders of the nation, namely unity in diversity. This is the only way that we can survive as one nation, to celebrate each other's differences and not just tolerate each other's differences. India as a nation, a subcontinent, has more diversity than Europe. And it is perhaps only Africa which has more ethnic, linguistic, and cultural diversity than India. This in itself is something to be celebrated. It is as if God has intended that this great nation come up, that very geography itself shaped it. And He set the boundaries of the great Himalayas on one side and the oceans of the Bay of Bengal, the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea bordering the entire peninsula. And so there was a hidden hand shaping the destiny of this nation. Though it seemed impossible that so many diverse groups belonging to so many linguistic, ethnic groups could come together as one nation. On 15th August 1947, when India became a nation, we never imagined that we would go through so many tumultuous events, like even the recent happenings that have happened, as mentioned by the director, in the northernmost state of the country. But India is like a kaleidoscope. When you shake a kaleidoscope, you get more and more beautiful patterns. So whatever be the crisis that have happened, an outsider like Naipaul, a critic of Indian, the Indian disunity rather than unity, he said that India is being cut every day by 1 million mutinies. That is, if a person is cut 1 million places, what will happen to that person? He will bleed. And like that, he saw the specter of a nation that was bleeding because of the disunities, the communal clashes, the caste differences, the linguistic differences. But this is not what we should emphasize. India is a kaleidoscope. Every time you shake a kaleidoscope, you see beautiful patterns emerging. And though we have gone through many crises, and even now we see this certain crisis happening in some parts of the country, it is like a shaking of a great nation. Becoming a nation and being a nation are two different things. This is what I wrote today, this morning. I write Philippisms, Philippisms, not a pun on my surname, Philip, but motivational sayings, basically meant for young people like you. And I've written more than 3,800 Philippisms, sayings. And what I was inspired to as I thought on the theme of this day, of National Unity Day, a day on which we celebrate the 141st birthday of one of the great founders of a nation, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And he was able to weld together by his vision more than 500 kingdoms and principalities which continued to exist even after 15th August 1947. And finally, we emerged as one contiguous nation with, all the kingdoms also welded into it, like Hyderabad, Goa, which happened as late as 1961. But being a nation is different from becoming a nation. Being a nation means that we must treat each other as truly as fellow citizens. I was reading today a very insightful article which came about the Hong Kong, how Hong Kong Indians are treated. The Indian diaspora is spread to all parts of the world because Indians are not lacking in IQ and creativity and technological expertise. And you will also be contributing to the technological expertise of this country and the world at large. The world in the coming years is going to see growing and aging population. Even China will have an aging population. But India has a demographic advantage, as you know, and more than 65% of our population is below the age of 25 or 35. 25 to 35 is 65% of the total population, which makes India historically one of the nations with the youngest segment of population in history. By the year 2030, India will be the only political entity in history to have 1.5 billion people occupying its land. So these are not coincidences, but there is a need for welding all these disparate disunities into one unity. We are not looking at uniformity, but unity in diversity. So there are many people, as you mentioned, the certain segment of people who are looking for uniformity. But it is not uniformity that we should look for. A true visionary would look for how to increase the diversities, how to celebrate these diversities. At a practical level, the students here, instead of forming cliques of your own language group or religious group or caste group, we must melt into the entire population. You must not form cliques of, say, Malayalam speaking people or Tamil speaking people or, even Northeastern people. But you must find friendship across all these barriers. Only then you are truly educated. Many years ago, I started something known as social justice tea parties. And that was basically to break the caste mold. India has 5,000 caste groups. You may have been told that India has only 4 castes, but actually we have 5,000 caste groups. And it exists in all the other religions too, and not only in Hinduism. It is so pervasive, and that is one of the most divisive factors of the Indian identity. And therefore, in your generation, I see a vision that these caste differences and caste identities will be completely melted away. And that will happen only if you build bonds and friendships and relationships at a personal level, one-to-one with each other. You must make friendship with the girl from Northeast, the girl from Kashmir, instead of all the time sitting in benches with your own language group or religious group. And then you will be able to learn much more. You will be culturally enriched. Your perspectives will develop amazingly as you interact with people from different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. And that is the opportunity your generation has in studying in an institution like this. So though you do not lose your basic temper and character, you begin to take what is good in the other persons. I was mentioning that article I read about why Indians are hated in Hong Kong. So it is said that when the British were ruling the Isles of Hong Kong, they found that when the Chinese were employed as police personnel, they did not obey orders to either, beat the crowds that gathered or certain other executive orders. And so what they did is they took Indian policemen. They took Indians and employed them in the police in Hong Kong. And they found that they would do just the bidding of the rulers. And that sense of antipathy continues till today. And even in India, they found that today actually coincidentally in addition to the 144th birthday anniversary of the Iron Man Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, we are also celebrating the 100th anniversary of a tragic event. You know what is that event? Which played a formative role in India's freedom struggle. Anyone has an idea? Can you guess? Yeah, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Here was a British general ordering Indian troops, all primarily Indians, to fire on a defenseless crowd who were peacefully gathered in this public park. And they blindly obeyed the orders. And as a result was hundreds of people died in the firing, or they died in the stampede, or they jumped into the well in the park. If you haven't visited that Jallianwala Bagh, you should make it part of your, itinerary in the future. And therefore, Indians consider not other nation people as others, according to this writer who is a Harvard-based scholar, Amit Mitra. He says Indians consider other Indians as the other, unlike other nationalities. While Americans will consider people outside the United States only as the other. Or in the United Kingdom, they would consider people other than only whites as the other. But here in India, historically, we consider other Indians as the other. And that, he said, is the psyche. And so in this evolution of this cultural kaleidoscope, there is a need for us to regard fellow Indians not as others, as someone different from us, but as our own, flesh, as our own, if not kith, at least they are our fellow citizens. And therefore, whether they hail from the Northeast, and this is as mentioned by the lady from the Northeast, whenever we, see them, we tend to, typify them, stereotype them. based on racial features, which is a tragedy after 60, 70 years of us being a nation. So being a nation means to understand all parts of our country, the cultural differences, the racial differences, and to celebrate it, which means we must have knowledge. If we visit these places, we will understand how beautiful they are. The Northeast is real treasure for India. I've been there many times, and some of the best days of my life have been spent in some of these northeastern states. And in the remaining years of my service, I intend to go there again. Very often, the sense of hostility towards the other is due to ignorance and not due to knowledge. There is a fear of the stranger, a kind of xenophobia. And sometimes it emerges, as it happened in Bangalore, in sudden law and order flashes. And sometimes it appears in attacks on other racial people, like even the blacks. I find that the sense of racism in India is rather acute, which I have not found even in my travel to Kenya and other African nations. And that we need to get over in the coming years by developing that familiarity, that understanding of cultures and different regions of the world. Regions of the country too. And this will enable us to be more evolved as a citizen, more evolved and refined as a human being. So becoming a nation is one thing, being a nation is another. Now we do not have to indulge in a lot of self-condemnation at this juncture, but we can celebrate the fact that we have been able to stay together as a nation all these 7 decades, and we are progressing rapidly. And we need to therefore emphasize these essential unities, which Jawaharlal Nehru speaks in his book, Discovery of India. He said, despite the differences, there is an essential Indianness, a unity underlying it. You may be from Bihar or West Bengal or Haryana or Gujarat, or from Tamil Nadu or Andhra or Kerala. But there is an essential Indianness about us. We may belong to different religious groups. There are four major religious groups, as you know, in India. But we will have a certain Indianness on which we may not be able to put a finger what exactly it is. But when we travel abroad especially, we see Indians coming together. We see them, whether they come from different parts of the country, you will see they will identify themselves first as Indians. That sense of Indianness needs to come on the subcontinent. We should not identify ourselves first and foremost as Malayalis or Tamils or Biharis or what else, but we should identify ourselves first and foremost as Indians. Yes, we have subnational identities. We belong to various language groups, various religious groups. Yes, we can hold on to and cherish what we have gained from those subnational identities. It doesn't mean that we are going to give up all the subnational identities, but it is a mutual respect that we develop for people of all other subnational identities, religious groups, linguistic groups. Only then we will have that sense of peace. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel said that with freedom, our countrymen will be happier. But only with the freedom, India should bring the message of peace to the world. How can we bring the message of peace to the world when we do not have peace within our subcontinent? So when we live together as one large family of 1.3 billion people, respecting each other, celebrating our differences, trying to understand each other, trying to learn each other's culture, as these students have beautifully depicted in the panel discussion and their responses to their questions on what is their favorite food items, and so on. So the coming 4 years of your life should become an elaborate experimentation in understanding what is India and celebrating India. Then only India can take a great place in the comity of nations. India is truly a great nation When I was in the plus two, I wrote a few lines. I'm not a poet, but I was suddenly inspired to write these lines. South of England, south of Germany, south of Italy, there lies one land, greater than most, weaker than none. That is my India. So let us celebrate this National Unity Day with a sense of pride, the sense of respect for each other. God bless you. Thank you.